Hey, everybody, it's the big guy, Scott Farrar. That's Rob, the Hammerschmidt, and this is episode
What up?
207 of the Rugby Rant. And
Yeah, baby.
for those of you that are watching, New England just beat LA 23-21 coming back that game
Wow.
tonight.
That's a spoiler for me.
Yeah,
I haven't watched it yet.
You're welcome. Thank you very much to the Tribe app. If you want to look up updated scores, the Tribe app does have MLR scores, so it's pretty good if you're not available to watch it. But yeah, we're in that part of the season that we talked about preseason, where it's kind of crazy, and you have these mid
compressed
mid-match
weeks. There's going to be some interesting lineups. I saw some Seattle fans were complaining about the lineup in I think they were playing Carolina, or Anthem Rugby Carolina. So they were complaining about the lineup and the fact that the
it's
lineup
funny
is
though,
pretty much full on starters. But
it's funny because but the lineup stuff happens every year. We've seen it where teams that are going across, especially coast to coast mid-season, sometimes they'll put out what I would call a B+ squad, depending on how many minutes other guys have played, if it's not in their division, how many bonus points they have, what their point differential is, all that stuff goes into what your strategy is to pick the team there. So
it's funny you say that, because somebody said that Seattle is going right from Anthem, right from Charlotte down to New Orleans. So they're probably taking a larger training squad, a larger traveling squad, just because they're going to be jumbling the lineup with two very close compacted games.
That makes sense, though. This is why they created that extension of the squad. So, but guys, it's episode 207. We have the Mitch Short interview out just now. Go check that out. Hound Scrum Half. We had the Oliver Gilpin interview last week, so we're rolling with these RPKs again. Yeah,
and the cool thing about the Mitch Short interview, and I don't want to spoil it, but there's a really interesting piece about an injury, and the fact that an injury that's very, I don't want to say common in rugby, but it's certainly one that players experience with an ACL, and kind of a unique experience for Mitch Short. It's worth checking out. There's we talk a little bit about it, talk about his experience in dealing with that injury when he was with the, I think it's the Brumbies, if I'm not mistaken.
Dude, I always got plantar fasciitis from the shitty boots we were wearing, but that's just a fact.
The shitty boots in the hard ground?
Yeah, metal spikes with no support. There's no arches in the damn boots. You're 340 pounds, a sexy man trying to run for about 60 to 70 minutes in Division 4 because you never had enough guys. So you'd have to go at least 70.
You're putting in butcher minutes right there in the front row.
Exactly. And your feet were just killing you on these little metal spikes. But anyway, we're going to get to Around the Pitch. Hammer time.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I always like to talk about college rugby, and of course, as of the recording, we're going this week. We're going into the collegiate CRA finals. You got, I believe, Cal, and you got Life. All right, but I'd like to congratulate all 5 of the Rudy Schultz nominees, and this is, of course, like the Heisman is for football. This is to rugby. You've got 5 nominees on the men's side. Bradley Crane from Life, he's a number 10, so he'll be in the final, of course. Ronan Kruger, or Krieger, I should say, from Cal. He is a fullback, so you'll see these 2 guys in the final. Then you got Duncan Krika from Lindenwood. He's a flanker. You saw him last week. Oscar Tracy from Central Washington, he's a wing, and John Wilson from St. Mary's is a prop. And I'm sure that Scott will be talking a little bit about Central Washington here in a moment. Just want to say one thing. 5 nominees. Let's see how many of these individuals appear on a sheet in August for the draft list. 2025 draftees. We'll see.
So speaking of Hammer was correct. I'm talking about the unfortunate news coming out of Central Washington University, their decision to discontinue men's and women's rugby as a varsity sport Completely insane to me, especially on the women's side with Title IX still looming as part of the Division One atmosphere, and having that equality for women's sports. Let's be honest, it can't be that expensive to run a rugby team compared to baseball, hockey, lacrosse, field hockey. A lot of sports that need a lot of gear. So it's terrible that they're cutting and discontinuing those sports, and especially technically after the transfer window. I have a feeling NCAA, they'll be able to get waivers based upon how it went down. But if you know somebody who's looking for players on the collegiate level, you can go to the Golf Rugby Report, and our buddy Alex partnered with Next Phase Rugby. Next Phase Rugby has an app. They're giving these guys, these student athletes, free premium profile on the Next Phase Rugby app to help them try and find a college to transfer to for study and to play rugby. So he had, if you go to the Golf Report, you could check out the article, and he actually has a list of, I believe, the men's team, their contacts, their emails, and their phone numbers to contact them directly if you are looking to help them out by trying to find them a team to play for next year. Like I said, it's really unfortunate. And based upon the circumstance, I wouldn't be surprised if NCAA advances them a waiver to go through transfer and not have to sit out a year, and two, since they're outside the window, kind of sneak through. Cameron, what's your second?
Number two, it was interesting. I was just searching the web, doing the thing, a little bit bored, and I found on World Rugby Shop that they had Moonshot T-shirts. Of course, Moonshot 2031 is the name that Scott Lawrence has given to this effort to prepare our men's Eagles 15s team for 2031 when the World Cup is on our shores. And I've talked a lot about Moonshot in the past, interviewed Scott. As a matter of fact, an interview will be coming out next week in which I interview Scott again as we just get the 70-man training squad roster, as well as a full-out list of the internationals on board for this 2025 rugby season. I talked to Scott a little bit about not only the roster, but this host of matches and some other items in and around Moonshot 2031. So this T-shirt is out. You can pick yours up at World Rugby Shop. It's a cool T-shirt. I got to be honest. I was going to get a shirt just to support the effort. My struggle is it's a one-color T-shirt with one-color print, on it, white, right? It's possibly the cheapest T-shirt.
There's actually three colors.
Really?
Well, black, red, and blue. So I don't know if maybe you got on there
no. I mean, you could get them in three different colors, but what I'm saying is the actual
the print itself.
Print,
okay. I'm sorry.
The print is white, right? The print is white, so it's the cheapest T-shirt just about you could get. I mean, the color T-shirts cost a slightly bit more, but I've done a lot of T-shirts, and that's a cheap-ass T-shirt. It's single-sided, right? It might cost $6 to produce, $45. And I'm going, I don't mind supporting the effort, but that's half of a nice jersey from, even a full-on, pretty close to last year's jersey on sale. So I'm not a buyer at that point, but use your money how you want.
I hear you. Yeah, that price point is expensive, as I have all my models that cost me hundreds of dollars over the years behind me. But I'm actually going to talk about an interesting article from the Canadian Broadcasting Company posted on March 11th. And it says, Canada has one of the world's best rugby teams, women's rugby teams, 15s. Why are they asking for money? Canadians women's rugby team has come out and asked for funding for the World Cup 2025 on the website. The national fundraiser for Rugby Canada is Mission Win Rugby World Cup 2025. The sports governing body is aiming to raise $1 million to provide the women's team with extra resources ahead of the 16-team tournament that runs August through September in England. We already know, that's happening this year. The Women's World Cup, we're gearing up for it. 30% of the fundraising goal has already been achieved via private donors. And during March, all donations were matched up to $50,000 by a private donor. This money will go to increase training time, additional players, coaching, room and board. My question then becomes, Rob, what funding, if any more, do the men get outside of this fundraising effort? Because if the men get the same fundraising as the women, and obviously the women have a better team, right? On the 15 side, we know this, they're number 2 in the world. Okay, ask for extra money. It makes sense, right? We're trying to unseat England as the world number 1. We want to have these extras to do that. I can understand that. So my question is, do they get any more than the men originally? Do they get the same as men? Do the men get more than them? And then why are they fundraising to do it at this point? We know since that 2021 audit report came out, according to them, Rugby Canada has been in shambles. I could shout out names: Derek the Jet Brissett, our buddy MLR Stats James Dealey, Dougie Wilkie, guys who continue to tell us that Rugby Canada is in shambles, despite the women's 15s team's performance. So it was a question of why they put the article out the way they did, is interesting to me. And again, what kind of expense and what's the revenue share between the teams? So it's just an interesting question in the day and age of having men's and women's teams and parity. So it's just an easy one,
Yeah, well, a couple of things are interesting as takeaways. First of all, I would love to know, and maybe James Dealey is the best person to tell us this, I would love to know if and how all their financials are reported. I know that the USA Rugby has to report their financials, so you can go back to 2022, 2023, and now with tax season just ending, hopefully at some time soon you'll be able to go to 2024 and get the white papers and just take a look at USA Rugby's funding and all their dollars and cents, their cash outlays, all their revenues, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know, and I haven't spent a lot of time looking at Rugby Canada's, but perhaps James Dealey or anyone, Derek Brissett or Doug Wilkie, would know how to access that, but that would be an interesting look to be able to answer your question. I would say what's interesting, and I missed an opportunity, I will admit, back when the Free Jacks came to SeaTac Stadium and played the Hounds. Little disappointed there because, in actual fact, the head coach and the assistant coach from Men's Canada were there. My wife actually spoke with them, and they took off right away. I would have loved to have been able to ask them a little bit about this had I known or had I had an opportunity. But, horses for courses, wishes and wells, it is what it is, but it is an interesting question.
And they quote Sophie de Goody, captain of the 15s team, and she actually mentions last World Cup cycle we weren't able to get the funds that we needed. That was that 2021 year, right? The 2021 year, and so our time together was greatly impacted. One of the most valuable things we have going into a big performance is just time together as a team to iron out the kinks. So I mean, it seems as though they're literally just looking for that funding to make sure they have enough players and enough people and enough time to go and get it done. Now we talk about funds. So Rob, I just purchased a Moonshot tee, and with shipping and tax, $55.62.
Well, I was going to say you can go on World Rugby Shop. I think it is, if I'm not mistaken, you can get like the Castori, right, gear on sale and probably get a jersey for about that. Right.
So I just wanted to point that out there. I do try and sport. As a matter of fact, this was from the 2021 Women's World Cup, and spending, I think this was 50 on the women's team, who we know is underfunded, to help them with a World Cup specifically, and getting the results we typically get with them is something I'd like to do. The 15 Foundation, you can not buy an eagle. That's not correct, but you can like carry an eagle for a certain amount.
Sponsor.
Sponsor an eagle for a certain amount through this World Cup cycle, things like that. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. I think it's good to reach the public to get the funding. But again, like $45 right now, I mean, for a World Cup that's, 6 years away, like.
Yeah, right. So what's interesting, and circling back to Scott, and I got to tell you folks, sorry, I couldn't share the information. He swore me to secrecy. But what's interesting is when you talk about funding in national teams, Scott fortunately has had some advantages in this cycle in how he's funding and supporting the Eagles' efforts. He's gotten very creative in his efforts to do so, but it's been an advantage, and it's advantage, unfortunately, for some of the other, for their brothers and sisters north of us that they can't take advantage of at this moment. But funding is an issue both north and south of the border for sure.
Yep, it is. But this is the way it is, and that's how you can help the teams. You can go buy that Moonshot Rugby shirt. You can go if you're north of the border in the Great White North there. You can go into the Rugby Canada website. Excuse me, a little sick today, and donate as much as you can. So we appreciate it. But we're going to talk about, since it's technically the halfway point. Some teams have played 9 matches, other teams have played 8 due to bye weeks.
Yep.
So we didn't want to do it last week when it was like 8 and 7. We thought the natural position right now is between 8 and 9. The Free Jacks just playing their 10th match right now, and then I believe there's a match tomorrow. So, it's not the natural halfway point that we normally talk about, but this is where we decided to talk about halfway. We're going to pick 3 winners of the first half. But before we get into that, we got a quick word from our sponsors. And like I said before, we're going to be talking our top 3 teams of the half. And it's funny looking at that transition video.
You and I were thinking the same thing.
So many guys on that transition video who haven't been on in a while or, stepped away from the game of rugby. We got to have our buddy Mikey Perazini on at some point.
Yeah, we do.
Grand Poobah. Alex Carlson has to come back. I mean, we just had Ty on a couple episodes ago for the 200th episode. Shout out to Ty and his budding coaching career in high school rugby, but we got to get some people on and work back with the OGs. Obviously, Fee always being front and center is nice.
Well, I was just going to say the shameless plug, reminder everybody, if you're in Chicago for that All Blacks Ireland match, Reggie's is going to be the place to be. It's being put on by my buddy Norm Smythe. Designs out of the norm, of course. He's doing some great artwork, but he's doing this big deal down there at Reggie's. It's all pregame celebration, and Scott's coming into town, and we're going to be doing the Rugby Rant live from Reggie's. And I've already secured Dave Fee to join us for a little bit of that broadcast. So we're making it happen, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think the Misfit Maven Jasmine Rivera is going to be out there with her husband Chris. We're going to see what she's doing, if we can secure her. Maybe talk a little bit about
100%.
Well, let's see. We'll be in the middle of right at the tail end of the Women's World Cup.
Right.
The far end of the WER season 1. So maybe we'll do a little recap. We'll see who's there. Doug and Sheila Falcon will be out there, so maybe we'll get Dougie on. Dan Falcon. Dan and Sheila, and we'll see who else is out there. I have a feeling Stevie Johnson's going to be out there. Mr. Duma himself. He's usually good for a little talk. I have a feeling, maybe we'll see the Lizard out there. So we'll see. We'll see who we can get on. Yeah, we'll see if we can get him on. But so let's start out. So we're starting with number 3, right, Rob? We're starting at the bottom,
right,
and then going to the top. So
I'll let you
kick it off.
Yeah. So these, just to clarify, these teams are, the top 3 teams in that first half of the season. So number 3 means yeah, this team is right up near the top, but we don't think they're quite the top. And so my number 3, I'm going with, oh boy, I'm going to go with the New England Free Jacks. And I'm going to go with New England Free Jacks. They are by far the hottest team up to this point. The struggle is that they had some early struggles early on. I think they went 3 of 4 maybe off the cuff, or 2-1 or something like that off the cuff, and then they went on a hot streak. Currently a 7-game win streak, because they're 7. What are they? 7-3 at this point. And I don't know if they got the bonus point tonight, but that means they're 1 point ahead of the Chicago Hounds on, the table. That being said, like I said, they were, as of before this recording, they were second to Chicago in the East, 31 points. Now they've jumped up probably a 6-game win streak. What I think is interesting about this team is they're number 7 in points for at 245. Again, this is before this Tuesday night midweek match. And they're number 1 in points against. So they are number 2 in point differential in the league at 66, a plus 66 points. Their defense is amongst the top in the league as well. And again, I think that shows itself, and they have a pretty low points against at 189.
They did not get the bonus point, as they only scored 2 tries. But
that's awesome.
And our boy, former iron worker Danny Hollins had 11 points, a couple of penalties, and then banging in a couple conversions there. So
yeah, so gives you an idea of why they're in the hunt. It's a team that I thought would be right up near the top. I think they were struggling early on. I think part of this is because of the new coaching staff, a little bit new philosophy, and players are adjusting. But now that they've started to make those adjustments and get time and camp together and adjusting to the new coaching philosophy and some of the new tactics that were talked about at the front end of the season on the coach's corner with me, I think they're going to be a team to be reckoned with here at the end.
Absolutely. So you want to know, they won their first match against LA, then they dropped 2 matches, one against the Hounds, one against Seattle, knocked off your boys in NOLA, and then DC knocked them off, and then they just came back and they had the win against Utah, the big win against Miami, and then beating San Diego. So I mean, they got there. If you look at them, you're right. The first 5 matches they went 2-3, with 2 decent losses in a row. I mean, their loss to Seattle in Starfire was only by 3 points. That's a tough place to play. So, I think I think they're a solid 3 team. And again, you're right. They're kind of hot right now. I would actually go. My number 3 team is the Chicago Hounds. I know Robbie's not going to like that. And honestly, as a Chicago fan, I don't like that. But there's just something about the fact that they only have 5 bonus points on the season. And don't get me wrong, they're leading in the standing, or they were leading in the standings up until tonight, with the Free Jacks getting those 4 points. And getting, let's see, they'll be 2 ahead in points at this point before Chicago plays. But it's point differential. It's the 2 matches they lost. I wasn't a fan of how they lost them. I think there's something to be said about how you lose sometimes, and losing that one to to Seattle last Friday at Starfire is tough for me to take, especially since they beat San Diego Legion in Torero Stadium. It's a rough one. Losing to Utah, was it week 2 or 3? I think it was week 3, because I think Chicago
week
had
2. No, you're right. It was
it was week 2. It was week 2.
It was week 2, yeah, because it was our first home game and Utah's first game.
Yes, that's what it was. So Utah had the extra week, but Chicago, they're at SeatGeek. It's their home territory, and in my opinion, Utah had their way with Chicago up until the end. Chicago started to come back a little bit, but they dropped 45 points on Chicago in their first home match. So those 2 are really disappointing losses to me. And the point differential, I think right now stands at, bear with me, I just had it, now I lost it. It's only a 46-point differential. The Free Jacks right now are running a 59-point differential. Houston SaberCats have a 49-point differential, and Utah Warriors have a 71-point differential. So it's that with the bonus points means they're not scoring enough tries, their losses aren't close enough. That it's all those things combined that, yes, they may be getting the wins, but there's something to be said about getting those bonus points to completely put you in a position to be where you want to be at the end of the season.
And I guess I'd say this in response. Agreed, Utah, bad loss, although they were tied 21-21 at half. They had some card issues that led to some points. I think there were 12 points because of a yellow card. And at the kind of the third quarter of the game, which is a really bad point. But that, I agree with you on that loss. Don't forget it was their second game, so let's take that into context. And I'd say the Seattle game, let's take it into context, the fact that they lost by 6. But this really, they only had of that team that I think will be put out, hopefully if they make the playoffs, and I think they will, they only had 5 or 6 of their starters, their regular players, on that team against Seattle. Again, I think Latham was resting some players who had a lot of minutes, and that includes guys like Campbell, and that includes guys like Devoto, although Campbell played, but Devoto and Flesh and Rumball played, but Maka Jones.
And we talked about that, and we talked about that at the beginning of the show about. You'll see sometimes if you're going across country, and depending on the team and the standings and everything, you'll put that what we decide to call the B+ roster out there, the B+ side. But again, yes, but Seattle is bottom of the league. Their play has not been great. Starfire has not been the stalwart atmosphere. I mean, the atmosphere is there, but people are winning up there. So It's one of those where if Chicago showed me a little bit more winning across to the West Coast, I think
they had a yellow and a red at one point. Again, they had 10 minutes that they were 2 men down.
Yeah, but you know what? You're shooting yourselves in the foot.
I agree.
And that's
100%. I agree.
And that's why Nola's in the position Nola's in, Rob. Let's be honest. But here's the difference. Nola 10 bonus points. Interesting. DC 9 bonus points. So versus the 5 that Chicago has. So, like I said, point differential isn't where I would want it to be. I would rather it being top of the conference at this point. Would rather it be close to probably 55-60, right where New England's at, comparative to everybody else. And again, I want to see those bonus points. 5 is a little light. 7 to 9, I think, is more accurate of where you want to be midseason. So, Rob, you're number 2.
This was a tough one, but I would go with number 2 as the Utah Warriors. And I go, first of all, they're second place in the West with 31 points, just behind Houston. Although Houston has 8 games, and I think they're only at 7, if I'm not mistaken.
Houston's at 9, Utah's at 8.
That's right. That's what I meant. They have 8 games. Houston has 9, so they have a game in hand on Houston. The ability to make up, that singular point. Round number 4, they lost to the SaberCats, if I'm not mistaken, 17-37.
Yes.
But that is in round 4. They have an opportunity to avenge that loss. They beat a Seattle team, which is just behind them, just this last week, 31-18, and that speaks a lot for me because they beat somebody right around that the second and third seed in that Western Conference. They've gotten bonus points in 6 of 8 matches. So when you talk about bonus points, they've got 6. That says something. They have a league high 40 tries.
7 bonus points.
Yeah. So league high, but they got 6 bonus points for having 4 more tries, is what I was getting at. Right?
Yeah, so, but 7 in total, yeah.
Okay. 7 in total, right. They have a 40 tries, which leads the league. They have a plus 71 point differential, which leads the league. They have the number 1 individual in tries with 8 in Joe Mano. Of course, we know he can get it done. They also have the number 13, two individuals at number 13 with 4 tries each. That would be Jordan Trainer and Nick Ben. So, they've got 3 guys in the top 15 with try scorers. And like I talked about the game in hand, that they have both on Houston and San Diego. So for me, they sit in the catbird seat, if you will, in the West, and they have an opportunity when they start catching up in those games to go ahead. The only thing that concerns me about the Warriors is because they're a game behind, they have one of the tougher schedules. Them in Seattle have I can't remember, it's 4 games in 15 days or something like that. It's a very compressed schedule, and it's going to be, we'll see what they're made of during that stretch.
So I'm probably flipping the script on you here.
Okay.
You probably have Chicago at number 1. And in my opinion, you put Utah at number 2, right?
Yeah.
So you either have Chicago or Houston at number 1 or 2. Number 1, excuse me. My number 2 is going to be Houston, actually. And again, we're going to talk about they have 8 bonus points and a point differential of 49. So the bonus point range are point differentials right there. They're 6-3 right now. It's the 3 losses that I'm really don't like in some of the closer games they played. So first match on your home pitch, you're playing Chicago. You lose by 3. That's a tough one. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one to drop. Just like I said, Chicago's first home match was tough to drop. SaberCats' first home match, tough one to drop. Then they go into LA. They beat them handily. They go up to they're actually back home against Seattle and win a squeaker. Go up to Zion Bank Stadium, pretty much handle Utah. But then they're at Anthem, and they win 46-45 against Anthem.
By 1. Yeah.
By 1. Anthem point differential right now is -124.
Yeah.
It's their 5 bonus points or their 5 points in the standings. That says red flag to me, because then they go and beat San Diego Legion, a solid team. But then what happens? They lose to LA, right? LA, bottom of the barrel right now in the West. Another team, negative point differential, right? 4-4. Well, now 4-5 with their loss tonight to Free Jacks. Then guess what? They go down to Miami, and Miami hands them another loss. And then what happens? They go into their home pitch playing NOLA, a team that has not been playing well, Rob. Going into that, NOLA had a little bit of a losing streak.
Agreed.
And while the losing streak continued, a 17-15 match, and don't get me wrong, the weather was a big factor.
Yeah, but NOLA shot themselves in the foot most of the game.
Yeah, and NOLA did what NOLA does best with a lack of discipline. So my point is, even it was just disappointing to see Houston not roll NOLA on their home pitch, despite the weather, which is if you're going to have bad weather at your home pitch, is where you should be rolling a team like NOLA, in my opinion. So I'm not looking. I'm looking at the overall picture of their losses. I don't like, and some of these wins are just too squeaking by, especially that Anthem win. Especially when you went and you handled Utah, you handled San Diego, and you let Anthem score 45 points on you.
Right.
That's a little bit crazy to me.
Well, and that's, I agree with you. I think those close wins to those teams and some of those losses are really bothersome, especially because that close win to the Anthem is a 1-pointer, and Anthem is we know they're winless and at the bottom of the East. And then Miami is right now, if the playoffs were to begin today, Miami would be out of the playoff picture. And again, they suffered a loss to a team that is out of the playoff picture, essentially. So that's a concern. Another concern with them is, giving up all those points is what do we know about championships in most sports?
Defense wins championships, baby.
Correct. Right? Correct. And they're giving up 45 points to the Anthem. That's a concern, when you're looking to be a Shield contender, and we know that they are. They went 15-1 last year. They were expected to roll on into the Shield champion, to the Shield, final match, and that didn't happen because they couldn't contain Dallas's offense in that match in the Western Conference semifinal. That's why they weren't in the top 3 for me.
Yeah, it's so we know who your top 1 is, Rob. All about Chicago. Yep. Go for it.
Yeah, and this isn't by all means a homer pick. I mean, I'm defending
Meanwhile,
it.
Chicago, 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 Chicago,
I'm
Chicago.
I'm defending it with statistics
You
and
named your dog after a
evidence,
member
right?
of the Chicago Hounds. Just it's okay.
That's not true. That's actually not true. He's named after Tucker Durkin, who plays for the Atlas lacrosse. We went with a rugby name for the first puppy, and we went with a lacrosse name because my younger son was going to get angry and pout for 3 days. So
And
anyway,
here I thought you named him after Will Tucker.
No,
New York,
Brad Tucker.
New York
Brad
rugby
Tucker.
legend.
Brad Tucker would have been it. But and realistically, I would have named him Bodie if I'd had my chance because he's black, just like the All Blacks, Bowden Barrett. But didn't happen. Anyway, beside the point. Yes, I went with Chicago. It's not a homer selection. 7-2 right now. They have an opportunity to take it to 8-2 this weekend. It's not going to be easy. They have some tough matches over the stretch, but they have a game in hand. So in other words, New England now has 2 games up on them. Because New England's 7-3, right? Yep. And DC is 4-5, so they have 9 games, and NOLA is 3-6. So they have a game in hand against the 3 other teams right now that are in the playoff picture, which bodes well for them. 33 points. Second overall is New England with third. Well, now they're the number 1, but again, they have a couple games in hand over the Hounds. They have 3 players. This is what I like. They have 3 players with 5 tries, right? They have Butch, Jones, and Mason Flesh. What that says to me is that they spread their tries out. Unlike a Joe Mano who's got, that 8 tries and is really, their other guys are kind of deeper back. Those 3 guys are scoring tries, and they have a couple others that are just out, just inside of that top 20 in try scoring. Like I said, one of the things that was interesting is I got access to some stats, and they have no statistics for game day stats that are in the red. They're the only team that's neutral or green in the statistics, and it's about standard deviation. So the farther you are away from standard, that median or that mean, I should say, you get green. The farther below, you're in the red. They're the only team that has no red. All other teams have some statistic that's in red. And then let's see, they have a 13.11 scores Z-score summary, right? The next closest team is 8, and then the third is number 5. I'm not worried about their plus 46 point differential because their defense is solid. A number of teams have gotten inside of that 22 and tried to score tries, and they've defended very well. They've created some turnovers. They've defended them all. So for me, defense wins championships, and they have the defensive game and the defensive fortitude to win. Like Luke White said to me 2 weeks ago, he said, our team has the ability to go some deep, dark places for very long stretches of time. And to me, that will prepare them for a solid run towards and into the playoffs.
Luke White on a TikTok for the Hounds. Butcher, still not available, apparently. Butcher is on the social media injury list, not being able to do a TikTok for the Hounds.
He's focused. He's focused on the next game.
So my number 1 is actually going to be the Utah Warriors.
Okay.
Usually, this is at this point of the season, this is where the peak of the Warriors happens, and then the fall off starts.
Yes, I knew you were going to go with that.
But currently sitting at second in the West, 6-2. They have a game. They're one of the teams with played 8 matches. So as of before the New England and LA game, all the teams on the East Coast had 9 matches played. Then Houston and San Diego, 9 matches played. Utah, LA, Seattle, only 8 matches played. So we're talking 6-2 right now with a 71 point differential, 7 bonus points. That's the range that I'd like to see at this point of the season. They're only 1 point away from Houston. And, if you look at their losses and their wins, right? They come in, we talked about the Chicago. They put 45 points on Chicago in SeatGeek Stadium on the Hounds' home territory. Then they go in and they beat up on NOLA at home at their first home match of the season. Then they come in and they're playing a really good SaberCats team and they get mollywomped by 20 points. Hey, there's a reason Houston's number one, right? Then they take it into Miami. They mollywomp Miami. They go in. They play a tough one in Seattle. They win by 3 up in Starfire. But hey, it's think about it. It's a grudge match. That's going to happen. Then they drop one at home to the Free Jacks. That's the one that gives me a little bit of pause to say, man, that's a tough one to lose. You're at home. You have the altitude. You supposedly will have your A squad out there. And the Free Jacks come and beat you by a converted try. That's a tough one. They go and they get revenge against LA, dropping 45. And then they go in Torero and drop 31 on San Diego and hold San Diego to 18. So, I mean, you're looking at a team that's consistently putting up, 45, 55, 37, 36, 30, 33, 45, 31. Excuse me. I gave you the right. It was 45, 55, 17, 36, 30, 26, 45, 31. So, I mean, you're talking consistently putting up 30 points just about every other match. That's a big deal.
I guess the only thing I would say, Scott, is if you look at the finals of the last couple MLR Shield Championship matches, how many teams scored over 30 points? I think the last time it was, if I'm not mistaken, LA, did New York do it?
I think it was probably New York. I think they had 36 in the 36.
Was that the final?
I believe.
In 2022?
I believe 36, 32. But here's the thing. Utah's never gotten to the final. So, just saying. But here is where that starts the downfall of the Utah season. I know Warriors fans don't want to hear it. I know it's a whole thing, but I have to be quite honest. It's just the way it is, Rob. I mean, that has historically been, they come to the second, they peak midway through the season, and then they topple that roller coaster, and they're usually left out in the dust.
Yeah, and they're coming, like I said before, they're coming to that stretch of territory. I mean, I have to look at their games that they have coming up, but I believe they have a stretch where they have 3 games in 14 days or something of that nature. You probably have the schedule.
Yeah, they play. They play the Hounds on Saturday the 26th, and they play San Diego.
So that's this Saturday.
Saturday in Zion Bank Stadium.
Yep.
And on Wednesday they're in Zion Bank Stadium again.
Yep.
Playing San Diego, and then May 4th they're traveling to OGs.
Right.
So
they have 3 games in 11 days.
Sunday. Yep. So it's a tough one, but 2 of those games are home matches for them.
Yeah.
So it's not as bad as you would think. But so my top 3, I'm going Warriors number 1, SaberCats number 2, and Chicago Hounds number 3. And the Free Jacks with this win, I'm not taking this win into account that they just beat LA for, because the other teams need to catch up a little bit in games played. But if Utah and Houston don't take care of business this week, Free Jacks can certainly slide in there. Could have slid in there.
Yeah, and I had at number 1, of course, I had the Hounds, and then number 2, I had the Warriors, and number 3, I had the Free Jacks. The thing about this Free Jacks win against LA is, if I'm not mistaken, on social media, LA posted that they lost 4 props for the season, right? And then they brought in a prop from Belmont Shore
Rugby Club,
which, it's they're a top D1 team. They were in the finals in the D1, lost, of course, to the St. Louis Bombers. But to give you an idea, that's, they had to bring in some reinforcements from their Division I team. That does not bode well for them. And they were not exactly a strong team up front or in the pack. If you had to balance that team out, they were very back heavy, and a much better back line than there was forwards. And that's where I think that they're going to struggle. So the Free Jacks beating LA, good. It's a win. I'm not going to take it away from them. I think that it should have been a bigger win than that for the Free Jacks. if they really want to put
Mhm.
a stamp on things going forward into the second half. Just my opinion.
And I think it was 4 total out for the season, right?
Yes, for
Yeah,
the
that's
2025
yeah,
season. Yeah,
like
right. And they
not coming back.
right.
You know,
And the Free Jacks didn't get a bonus point against them. That's the other concern too, right? So it's one thing if you can eke out a point differential, or sorry, a bonus point for tries,
Mhm.
but they weren't able to do that tonight, which is again a cause for concern. You want to start the second half on teams that you should beat. You want to be able to put your foot on their throat. That's one of the things I'm going to be looking for from the Hounds. We haven't really seen them step on anybody's throats. They win tight matches, they win tough matches, and that's a good sign. But every once in a while, you want to see a team step on the throats of teams they should beat. And the Hounds didn't really. I would expect for them to do that against the Anthem. They only won by 8. It would have been nice to see them do that. I hope they can do that here coming up in the second half of the season.
Yeah, we're gonna find out. We have a good second half coming up. We're super excited about it, and because we're kind of in the middle of this week, we're gonna forego the locks of the week because a game has already been played. There's gonna be a game played
Right.
In between when we record this and when we post this. But shout out to Macron, our sponsor, doing a bunch of MLR, doing all the MLR kit, doing a bunch of team kit. Go to MLRshop.com to get your kit. Go to the team stores that Macron has open and check out the Rugby Rant store at Macron and help us by purchasing some merch. Check out the website. Check us out on YouTube. We're all over social media. I'm hoping to go down to DC for the doubleheader. So if you see me down there, shout me out. We're going to have fun this season.
Yeah, and Scott, I just want to double down on that note about Macron. Look, folks, if you join Super Brew, we have 100 fans that join Super Brew. It's something that we've done consistently, I think, for now the 4th season, if I'm not mistaken. We have sponsors like Macron that are able to provide those hoodies weekly to winners because, the Rugby Rant, lobbies and does that. But we have got to support Macron so that they can help support us and what we do with the Super Brew effort. And we've got some great winners that are coming in. We didn't have a winner for this last week because we have these 2 midweek games that are still determining the winner for week 10. But hoodies are going out. People are enjoying them. Wilson Loban is getting his hoodie. Rich Eggert's getting his hoodie. So hoodies are being sent out. Anybody watching that got a hoodie, send us a picture. I just gave one to a Hounds player, to Nathan. It was actually Liam Fletcher's dad, Nathan Fletcher, won the hoodie, and I gave it to Liam, and he was jacked to get a Rugby Rant hoodie. So we have all kinds of merch on there, and everything is discounted to the point that we get it for. So it's the lowest possible cost being passed along to you, and you get some great stuff. I'm wearing the Rigel Hero Tech Tee, which is pretty comfy, feels real nice. So check it all out. Get yourself some merch.
Listen, I'm excited for all the stuff they gave me, my hoodie, my tee, the whole 9 yards. So gotta love our sponsors, baby. Man, I think we went through this whole thing, here it is. Hold on. I'm looking. Guessing Gen Z slang is funny because like Luke is like my age. So that's a good one to have. Him and Butcher should have done that one
Is
together.
That Whitey? Gotcha.
Yeah. Him and Butcher should have done that one. I think that would have been a good one. But anyway, guys, I'm the big guy Scott Farrar. That's Rod the Hammer Schmidt. This is episode 207 of the Rugby Rant. Again, Scott Loris interview coming out next week. Check out our interview with Mitch Short. Check out our interview with Oliver Gilpin. Check out the New York Exiles show we do every Thursday. We talk about the Exiles of the WER. Listen, this is what we do, baby. We got to love it. So we'll see you all next Thursday.